The chaos at Twitter isn't even close to being over, with Elon Musk continuing to smash his new toy against the wall in order to reshape it to his will. To understand his recent actions, we have to look at two different tropes in the domain of management and wealth. I think this will provide a basic frame of reference so that we don't have to act like what's going on is unique to Elon himself. The first one, and anyone who's worked a single job at a larger company for a long enough time will have seen this, happens when executives are hired from outside with no experience in the field of the company that they are joining. So they come in with a shiny title and probably a lucrative compensation package and start looking into making changes immediately. They do this to validate them being hired as soon as possible, whether it's to have another "look at me, I saved the day" under their belt to put on the old resume or LinkedIn profile, or whether it's to make it past the current quarter. The problem with this approach is that no matter who you are or how accomplished your history, it still takes time to learn a new business. It takes time to learn what the actual problems are and why certain processes are in place and why certain tools are being used. When the personal priority as a newly hired executive is to make a splash in the hopes of looking good on paper, the necessary knowledge required to make good decisions isn't there, and important things get overlooked. I once had a conversation with a C-level executive that boiled down to him basically telling me, "If you ignore your battle scars, this plan makes sense, right?" Yeah, like I'm just gonna drop a decade's worth of experience telling me why your plan obviously won't work just to justify whatever you came up with in an afternoon on a, paper towel or whatever, based on surface level understanding. Now, I'm definitely not saying this applies to everyone across the board, but just that some folks do it. What's really surprising though is when the richest man on earth, who has the ability to take his time and money to do things properly, is engaging in this exact same behavior as well. The second trope is wealth and climbing the corporate ladder leads to inflated egos. We are human beings after all, and it's very easy to go, "Look at my big bank account. My bank account is big. I'm awesome." And yes, making a fortune doing something is some sort of validation for one's ability, but it's all about the details here. It matters what that something is, and it matters what the ability is. For example, Elon Musk made his largest fortune running a car company, and depending on who you asked, his ability is some combination of rallying people to invest, understanding that electric cars could be a huge market someday, and brute force getting the job done. He is well known for having worked 100-hour weeks, basically living and sleeping at his own factories. Which brings us back to Twitter. Again, in my previous video, link is in the description, we looked at the acquisition and a lot of the initial and controversial actions Elon took, with some of the outcomes: firing half the company, turning validation into a subscription service, banning people who make fun of him, and so on. It looks like the show isn't over. Elon sent a midnight email on a very early Wednesday morning to the roughly 4,000 remaining employees, detailing his order to build Twitter 2.0, demanding employees to be hardcore and work long hours or resign. Going forward, to build a breakthrough Twitter 2.0 and succeed in an increasingly competitive world, we will need to be extremely hardcore. This will mean working long hours at high intensity. Only exceptional performance will constitute a passing grade. Twitter will also be much more engineering driven. Design and product management will still be important and report to me, but those writing great code will constitute the majority of our team and have the greatest sway. At its heart, Twitter is a software and servers company, so I think this makes sense. If you are sure that you want to be part of the new Twitter, please click yes on the link below. Anyone who has not done so by 5 p.m. Eastern tomorrow will receive 3 months of severance. Whatever decision you make, thank you for your efforts to make Twitter successful. So Twitter's new supreme overlord is demanding of all the people who still work there, and this time literally too, since remote work is no longer allowed for whatever reason, to put in serious crunch time or get laid off. Some reports say that there is talk of this meaning 80 hours a week or more for the foreseeable future. No details were provided on how the employees agreeing to the new terms would get compensated for the additional labor being asked of them. It should come as no surprise to anyone that less than half of the employees decided to devalue their time by half. Speaking of having everybody work at the office, someone projected this this onto the San Francisco headquarters. But that's not all. Elon had the building shut down until at least the following Monday, with one employee citing the need to process access revocations given that most Twitter employees are no longer with the company. Company officials told employees all buildings were temporarily closed effective immediately and that their ability to enter with ID access was being suspended for the time being. Two people familiar with the company's action told Insider. The offices are expected to reopen on Monday. A current employee noted that the closing of offices is a dramatic move, but intended to prevent physical sabotage while they sort out access revocations, according to a Slack message seen by Insider. The closure was first reported on Twitter by Zoe Schiffer of the Platformer newsletter. The announcement came an hour after the deadline to choose whether to crunch away or walk away with 3 months of severance pay. This engineer from NVIDIA puts the absurdity of the situation into perspective, mocking in part the naivete of Musk's dismissal of supporting microservices necessary for security and other features unrelated to the main feed. Google seems like a pretty simple app. It's just a text input box with a bunch of web links as an output. Does it really need more than 10 engineers to maintain? Dr. Parikh Patel also alludes to the fact that some of the people choosing to stay at the company don't really have a choice in the short term, as being a tech company, Twitter does employ quite a few people on work visas. These folks are essentially held hostage, as H-1B visas are essentially tied to the employers sponsoring them. Twitter doesn't need 7,500 employees. All it needs is 150 H-1B workers who are willing to code in Goblin mode. To them, Elon's ultimatum was not work insane hours or collect 3 months severance, but work insane hours or go back to your own country. Very motivating. But if you ask me, I don't think Elon is so stupid that he thinks Twitter can run on a skeleton crew over the long haul. He knows he needs people working on the site he spent $44 billion on. After all, asking your employees to spend an additional full-time amount per week to compensate for those you just fired is a signal that there is indeed a shitload of work to be done. Branding his demands as hardcore, it sounds like a way to maintain his image that he works 24/7 and that everybody working for him should too, for no additional pay, apparently. Going back to what I was saying about ignoring the details and experience to force dramatic outcomes, simple math tells us that at least 75% of Twitter staff are now gone. Reporting tells us that not enough thought was put into those who got let go in the first round, with some people who got laid off having been asked to return in the short term. And now with Elon's new ultimatum, the already short-staffed company is seeing people leave on their own accords, which means Twitter as a company has zero ability to project what the internal structure will look like after half of the people who survived the initial layoff are gone as well. In other words, the organization of people within Twitter will be about as cohesive as a Russian battalion in 2022. Obviously, I'm not the only one making these observations, and the media is pointing to what may be a very real possibility. Twitter may end. The BBC outlined 3 scenarios for this happening. The first 2 options are dangers that every company faces. The website could get hacked, either in the form of lack of maintenance or reckless decommissioning of security services and protocols, or the physical servers themselves may get sabotaged. I guess closing the building for a couple days is going to help after all. With the organization being in disarray, the vulnerability to those options is heightened. There is, of course, a third option, the nuclear one, which is that Musk declares Twitter bankrupt and it gets wound down, although right now he seems to be enjoying his status as chief twit. Children get bored of their toys eventually. Just saying. Joking aside, there is a fourth option for how Twitter will end, which these following stories should make clear. Elon Musk calls for anyone left at Twitter who can write software to meet him or fly in to help him better understand Twitter's tech. Musk is now calling for anyone who actually writes software at the company to meet him on Friday. Unfortunately for the new chief twit, there is hardly anyone left. Those who might want to reconsider their decision to stay, as apparently the entire payroll department is gone. Twitter employees appear to be calling the bluff of new CEO Elon Musk and have resigned from their jobs. According to Business Insider, the company's payroll department has taken a huge hit as entire teams quit and accepted Musk's offer of 3 months severance pay. Wow. Before we get to the last part of this story, don't forget to press the like button if you're having a good time and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Large organizations are hard to sync even with a lot of chaos surrounding them. There's a non-zero chance chance that Twitter will end sooner than later, but on the flip side, whenever there's billions of dollars at stake, there's also a good chance that Elon will backtrack on his most controversial actions that can still be reversed, while the skeleton crew he's left with actually does hunker down to keep things running long enough so that essential things like user moderation and payroll begin to be staffed again. In the second scenario, the folks making the gamble of staying at Twitter may have some extra clout in their fields when they can claim that they kept Twitter alive while it was going through rough times, and despite the change in management. Situationally, the added professional proximity to Elon Musk is sure to be a card they can hold up their sleeve when searching for new opportunities in the future. In the meantime, however, Twitter's reduced ability to verify and moderate will negatively impact its role as a source of real-time critical information. Many will be looking for other ways to connect with people and to get information, says Danielle Paget, a professor of communication studies at Wayne State University in Detroit. Especially in a crisis situation, it's a way to share information with the greatest number of people. The people whose lives are most affected by the situation might not have a lot of options. They need to get this information and they need to get it quickly. Now it's a free-for-all, says Paget. To think that it could be compromised, it doesn't make me feel good. It's definitely a breach of confidence in the whole system. And a breach of confidence in a system ultimately leads to its abandonment if actions aren't taken to remedy the underlying cause. Twitter will likely be around in a year in some form or another, but it definitely won't be the Twitter we've known until recently. Thank you for watching.